The day my father was buried, my older brother smiled as he handed me a thin envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper claiming I had been left nothing. Every house, every investment, every dollar of our family's inheritance now belonged to him. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I simply folded the paper, thanked everyone for coming, and walked away. My brother watched me leave with the confidence of someone who believed the game was already over. He had no idea that one small detail in that envelope would unravel everything he thought he had won. If you're still listening by the end of my story, you'll understand why staying calm was the best decision I ever made. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. My name is Daniel. I'm 36 years old, a financial analyst who spent years helping companies uncover hidden risks and fraudulent transactions. My family always saw me as the quiet one, the son who avoided arguments, skipped family drama, and buried himself in spreadsheets instead of chasing attention. My brother, Ethan, was the exact opposite. Loud, charming, confident. The kind of person who could convince strangers he was successful while quietly borrowing money from relatives behind closed doors. Growing up, everyone believed he would inherit our father's business. I never cared about titles or recognition. I built my own career and my own life. But there was one thing my father valued above everything else: honesty. And the document my brother proudly handed me contained a mistake my father never would have allowed. I didn't tell anyone what I'd noticed. Instead, I made one phone call. The voice that answered changed everything. But I couldn't have imagined what I was about to hear. "I've been expecting your call." Those were the first words the attorney said after introducing himself. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. He explained that my father had instructed him years earlier to expect a phone call from me if anything about the estate didn't feel right. That sentence alone made my pulse quicken. I asked him one question. Did my father really leave everything to my brother? There was a long silence. Finally, he replied, "Not according to the documents in my office." I stopped walking. The funeral home parking lot suddenly felt very quiet. The attorney explained that the paper my brother had handed me wasn't the complete will. It was only a photocopy of a single page, missing signatures, witness acknowledgements, and several attached schedules that identified every asset in my father's estate. More importantly, the version he described was completely different from the one I had just received. My father hadn't left everything to one son. He had divided the estate equally. Unless someone had filed a newer will. I asked whether another version had been registered. "I don't know yet," he answered. "But don't confront your brother. Let me investigate first." That advice matched exactly what I had been thinking. People who lie often reveal more when they believe they've already won. The next morning, my brother called. His voice was unusually cheerful. He suggested we meet at our father's office to go over some paperwork. For the first time in years, he sounded almost friendly. I agreed without hesitation. When I arrived, he already had folders spread across the conference table. As he slid the documents toward me, he smiled and said, "Just sign these so we can finish everything today." I looked down. Buried halfway through the stack was a document that had absolutely nothing to do with settling my father's estate. My brother was trying to get me to sign away something far more valuable. And that's when I realized this inheritance was only part of his plan. I didn't touch the pen. Instead, I slowly turned each page, as if I were carefully reading every line. My brother leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, wearing the smug smile of someone who thought he'd already closed the deal. "Come on," he said. "It's just routine paperwork." It wasn't. Hidden between the estate documents was a transfer agreement for my father's holding company, the company that owned several commercial properties, a profitable warehouse, and a portfolio of investments worth far more than our family home. If I signed it, I wouldn't just be accepting the inheritance. I'd be surrendering every legal claim to the... I looked up and smiled. I never sign contracts without my attorney. For the first time that morning, the confidence on my brother's face cracked. Why would you need a lawyer? He asked too quickly. We're family. That single sentence told me everything. I calmly gathered the papers, leaving the unsigned agreement on the table. I'll have my attorney review them. His expression hardened. There won't be another chance. I'll take that risk. As I walked toward the door, I noticed a security camera above the conference room. My father had installed that system years earlier because he believed every important business meeting should have a record. Outside, I called the attorney and described every document I'd been asked to sign. He became unusually quiet. Then he said, "Daniel, don't go home yet. There was never supposed to be a transfer agreement. And I just received confirmation from the probate court." What confirmation? The will your brother submitted was filed only 3 days before your father's funeral. My father had been in the hospital, heavily medicated, during those 3 days. The attorney lowered his voice. If those signatures aren't genuine, this isn't just an inheritance dispute anymore. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. The caller ID displayed the name of my father's longtime bank manager. What he told me next turned suspicion into undeniable evidence. I answered immediately. The bank manager didn't waste time with small talk. "Daniel, I can't discuss every detail over the phone," he said, "but your father gave us written instructions 2 years ago. If anyone tried to transfer funds or alter ownership after his death under unusual circumstances, we were to contact both beneficiaries." Both beneficiaries? I asked. Yes. You and your brother. That confirmed what the attorney had already suspected. According to the bank's records, my father had never intended to leave everything to one son. Then the manager said something that made my heart sink. 3 days after your father's passing, someone attempted to move nearly $2 million from the estate's investment account. Was the transfer completed? No. I stopped walking. Why not? Because your father required 2 independent approvals before any transaction above $500,000. The second approval was never obtained. I closed my eyes. My father had anticipated this. Even after his death, he had built safeguards to protect everything he had spent 40 years creating. The bank manager continued. We also have security footage from that visit. Your brother wasn't alone. Who was with him? A man claiming to be the family's legal representative. My stomach tightened. Our family attorney had never mentioned sending anyone to the bank. I immediately relayed everything to my attorney. Within an hour, he called back with news that changed the entire case. The signature on the so-called new will had been compared with several of my father's verified signatures. The handwriting expert found multiple inconsistencies. It was enough for the probate judge to order an emergency hearing and temporarily freeze every estate asset. For the first time since the funeral, my brother wasn't in control anymore. That evening, he called me 6 times. I didn't answer once. Instead, I listened to the voicemails. With each message, his confidence faded. The arrogance disappeared, replaced by desperation. By the final voicemail, he wasn't demanding anything. He was begging me to call him back. The next morning, we walked into the courthouse. Neither of us knew a surprise witness was already waiting inside. When that witness took the stand, my brother's entire story began to collapse. The courtroom was silent as the judge called the first witness. I expected the handwriting expert. Instead, the courtroom doors opened, and my father's longtime executive assistant walked in. She had worked beside him for over 25 years. She knew every contract, every meeting, and every major decision he had ever made. My brother's face lost its color. Under oath, she testified that my father had asked her to record a private meeting just weeks before he passed away. He feared someone might try to manipulate his estate if his health declined. The recording was played in court. My father's voice filled the room. "If you're hearing this, someone has challenged my final wishes. My estate is to be divided equally between my sons. Any document stating otherwise is false." The courtroom remained perfectly still. Then came the final blow. The bank produced CCTV footage showing my brother entering a branch with a man pretending to be our family lawyer. Phone records, emails, and financial documents connected them to the forged will that had been filed just days before the funeral. There was nothing left to deny. A few weeks later, the probate court declared the forged will invalid. The original will was restored exactly as my father had intended. My brother didn't just lose his claim to the entire inheritance. He faced criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and attempting to steal estate assets. The fake legal representative accepted a plea deal and testified against him. As for me, I received my rightful share of the inheritance. I used part of it to expand my own financial consulting business and established a scholarship in my father's name for students studying ethics in business, something he believed was worth more than money. People often ask whether I hate my brother. I don't. Hatred would only keep me tied to the worst chapter of my life. Justice gave me something far more valuable, peace. My father once told me that wealth can be rebuilt, but character cannot. In the end, that proved to be true. My brother lost both his freedom and the respect of everyone who had trusted him. I walked away with my integrity, and that was the greatest inheritance of all. What would you have done in my position? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible stories.